Good morning and welcome to the Wednesday edition of the Author Chat Show. I'm your host, Lynda D. Brown. My guest today is author Ted Berner, and I want to make sure that I'm pronouncing that right. And Ted is going to chat with us about his book, Proof, the novel. This is regarding the giants found in Genesis 6:4. It's a very obscure scripture in the Bible that not a lot of people are talking about. So it's going to be interesting to chat with Ted about this, because this has also been a journey that I've been on since 1997 when I discovered it in the Bible, and it stopped me dead in my tracks like, whoa, what? Let's back up. So let's go ahead and bring Ted on, and so we can discuss his book, Proof, the novel. Ted, welcome to the Author Chat Show.
Hi, Lynda. Thanks for having me. I sure appreciate you inviting me on your show.
Oh, well, first of all, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. And like I mentioned in the intro, your book is definitely of so much interest to me that I discovered this passage when I was ill and I couldn't work. So the doctor had me on bed rest for a while. So I picked up my Bible and just started reading. And I got to Genesis 6, and I've done this before where I've read the Bible from beginning to end. And for some reason, this just really caught my attention. And I've been on a journey since 1997 to discover more about these giants in the Bible. But before we talk about this, let's get started with you. This is your first appearance on the Author Chat Show. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I live up in Montana, and I'm getting a little back. I'm going to put some headphones on to see if I can, to see if that'll help.
Okay, while you do that, I'm going to make sure we're also going live streaming on YouTube. So let me just bear with me just 1 second. I'm going to make sure that I don't have, that's not up and running. Nope, that's fine. So we're fine with that.
Okay.
All right, great. Yep. Okay. So I'm not hearing any background noises. Are you hearing me okay?
Yeah, I'm hearing you fine now.
Okay, great. So tell us about yourself, Ted.
Well, yeah, I'm from Montana. Live on a ranch up there in a small, not very populated area. Of course, none of Montana is very populated, but pretty much been up there all my life. I'm also an airline pilot. That's my day job. I just do the writing thing here on the side. But yeah, I've been with the airlines for 17 years now, so I get to travel around quite a bit. There's so much stuff mentioned that I wrote about that I really want to go see that I've only seen one of the sites yet. But yeah, that's married. I have we don't have any children. We do have several four-legged furry friends. We raise Bernese mountain dogs too as well. But that's pretty much where I'm at.
Okay, Ted, so we also have something else in common. I worked for American Airlines for a couple of years as a reservationist here in St. Louis, Missouri. And I tell you, the traveling, awesome. So, yeah, okay, great. You're a pilot with what, do you want to tell us what airline, or would you like to not reveal that?
Yeah, probably better not. I don't, sometimes they're funny about that kind of stuff. So.
Exactly. So tell us about your book. First of all, I love the title, Proof. What inspired you to title it Proof, the novel? Tell us about that.
Well, I thought it would be a good for what the character is trying to do throughout the book. He initially, he's looking for proof, and of course, if you get to the end, you'll see what that all boils down to. But and I kind of wanted a one-word title, and proof seemed to fit well. There was a couple other things also named Proof, so that's why I made the actual title Proof, the novel, just so it would be different.
Right.
But yeah, and that's pretty much why I wanted that because I fell in love with the word proof for it. So that's how I came up with that.
Okay, so that resonated with you more than anything else.
Yeah,
absolutely. Okay, so the book is actually a fiction but it's basically based on this scripture, this obscure scripture in the Bible, Genesis 6:4. So tell us about your character in the book. So,
Well, he's a college graduate student. He's got like one class left to graduate. I think his degree is going to be his criminal justice that he's graduating with, but he has an elective to take, and he takes this archaeology class. And they have an assignment to try to find some connection between anything in the Bible and these megalithic stone structures scattered across the world, you know, that are unexplainable. So that's what has him start to read the Bible. Again, he's read it before, you know, but like several people, like you said yourself, you know, you kind of blow by that, and it's like some of the stuff's so confusing, and so you just keep going. And but this time around, when he reads it, he notices it, and Genesis 6:4, which I'll go ahead and read that, because just in case some people really don't know what that is. On the Bible, so it's there were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them, the same became mighty men which were of old, men of renown. And so when he reads that, he steps back and says, "Wait a minute, what was that?"
Exactly. Wow.
And it's so funny, because then it's just, you know, you keep reading after that, and it's like, well, wait a minute, what happened here? They just touched on that, then next thing you know, it's the earth's getting flooded, and it's like, well, what happened? I want to know more about what that was.
Exactly. And you know, Ted, again, even though this is a fiction book, it's based on scripture. And what really also intrigued me about, again, the scripture in Genesis 6:4 was when I got to Matthew. And there's for those that are listening that might not be that familiar with the Bible, the book of Matthew starts with the Gospels of Jesus when he first walked the earth. And the disciples asked him, when can we look for your return? When will you be returning to the earth? Because he was telling them that he was going to have to leave. And then he said something sort of like the same reaction that I got when I read Genesis 6:4. He said, when the days are like the days of Noah, that's when you'll know that I'll be returning. Okay, so I don't know if you put this in your book, but it's like, wait a minute. Now, Genesis 6:4 is all about Noah and these giants. So it's like, whoa. So I don't want to tell my story. Tell us tell us your story about this adventure with this wonderful, intriguing scripture in the Bible, and how it ended up being your book, Proof, the novel.
Well, you know, I had read the Bible before, and kind of like the character, but then I was flying with a guy who we were in a lineup somewhere, waiting. The traffic was heavy, and so he had a Bible with him. He pulled it out, and I can't remember what we were talking about, but he pointed Genesis 6:4 out to me and says, you know, what kind of sounds like Greek mythology there, doesn't it? It's like, wow, yeah. So that's what, you know, gave me the idea. I thought I had a good idea for a movie. It's like, wow, you know, and I didn't do anything about it for several years until finally I thought, well, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and do this, because there really wasn't anything done about it that I had seen.
Right.
So I spent several years starting to researching, you know, which led me into the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Book of Enoch.
Right.
You know, he's told to read the Book of Enoch, and he just got done reading the Bible, and he said, well, I don't remember a Book of Enoch in there. And so he digs deeper, and then you know, of course, Enoch is mentioned in the Bible, not many times, maybe 5 or 6 times, and just a little bit. He's obviously important because it says that he walked with God, and he didn't have to die. God took him straight to heaven. So that lets you know that Enoch is pretty important. Yet when there's hardly anything about him in there, it kind of makes you wonder. But of course, when you start looking in the Dead Sea Scrolls, and these were, you know, I'm sure a lot of people, most everyone had heard about them by now, but that was back in like I think 1946 in the fall somewhere. There was a Bedouin shepherd looking for a goat that he lost up in the mountains. Just this is just like little east over the mountains from Jerusalem, right next to the Dead Sea. The Qumran, I think, is the name of the area. But he threw a rock into this cave because he thought his goat might have went in there, and instead of just hitting the ground, he heard it break something. So he went in and investigated. Well, there was these pottery tubes stuffed full of these scrolls. It's like he didn't really know what he had. But he took some of them with him, went back in, and then long story short, after somebody finally figured out what they were, it's like, wow, this is a huge discovery. And there was like, I think 900 different texts in there. Several, I mean, like the Book of Enoch, there was like 11 copies of that. And then there was all the books in the Old Testament except for one. I think Esther was not included in there. And there still might be more that they haven't found because, there's that's a pretty desolate area, and there might be some caves that they haven't discovered yet, or there might be some nooks and crannies that they haven't found more in. But there's the Book of Enoch goes into Genesis 6:4 much more detail.
Yeah.
Talks about who the sons of God really are. Fallen angels that came down, spiritual beings came down from heaven, and they all took an oath that they were going to commit this great sin because they saw the daughters of men and they were desirable. So they begin mating with the daughters of men, and that's where these giants come from. That's so briefly mentioned in the Bible, which of course now throughout the Bible the giants are referenced several times. But it's pretty amazing that it's because that's really what the God flooded the earth for, was because of what was going on with them. So I still find it hard to believe that there's not a little more about them in there. But and the Dead Sea Scrolls, there's even more. There's there's an actual book of the giants, which that's real fragmented, but it's pretty wild. It's talking about these beings and creating giants, monsters, even crossing with. There's even references crossing with like animals, which is I'm sure you've probably read most of those, the Book of Giants, the Book of Noah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's mind-boggling, Ted.
It is.
And it really surprises me, especially where we are now in this day and time with where we are in Scripture, that no churches are talking about this. There are a few people, and I'm going to briefly just to see if you've kind of followed these guys, because they're like on the trail of the giants, and that would be Steve Quayle.
Oh yeah, yeah, I'm familiar.
Yeah, exactly. And also, as a matter of fact, L.A. Marzulli, I actually discovered him first because I read his book that he had wrote. He did a series of fiction books, sort of like very similar to your book, Proof. But and he actually went even more detail. So I won't do a spoiler alert on there. But these are two authors for those that are listening to the show and that would like more information about these giants. Check out Steve Quayle and L.A. Marzulli. I usually post a lot of their videos on my Invisible Enemies, because I mentioned to you that I kind of wrote a series and also a standalone ebook, because it's so fascinating.
It is, and I would love to read when I get a chance. I would love to read what you've written about them too, because it's all. I like to see everyone's different take on it. Yeah, Steve Quayle, he actually lives up in Montana as well, but
Okay.
he reported about. I'm sure you've heard about this was just in 2002. The giants in Kandahar, Afghanistan.
Yeah. Yes.
Oh,
yes.
I mean, they had two. They talked to one of the pilots that flew the dead corpse out after they killed it, and they interviewed one of the people that the Army, in the battalion or whatever, that ended up going up there and shooting it. And that's not that long ago. So
exactly. And one of our troops was actually killed by this thing. L.A. Marzulli, and I'll send you the video. He actually talked, again, like you said, he talked to the guy, he talked to the pilot, and he talked to the guy that went up there, and they talked about how this giant, guys, in 2002, but actually came out of this cave in Kandahar, Afghanistan, and speared this army guy and killed him. Yeah. And Ted, before we get to your reading of your book, I just want to let you know, and this is a true story. In 1972, so I'm kind of telling my age there. I was in my seventh grade at our what we called our junior high. It's now called middle school.
Yeah.
We used to go on field trips every day. You know, the parents would send the kids to Washington, D.C. On a school trip. And we went to the Smithsonian Institution. And back then, Ted, I honestly do remember seeing this huge skeleton of this giant. Now, guess what? Since more and more people are beginning to look into the giants, the skeleton has disappeared. So I can honestly say that I actually got a chance to see that because it was mind-boggling. But again, if you're 12 years old, you don't know what you're really looking at, and you're not really. And I grew up in the church, and I never heard anybody talk about it. So it's like, oh, that's interesting. Look how big that thing is, and you just keep going.
Do you remember the story about it? Did they have a little story about it? No.
They had just like a little plaque, and it's at 12, not really paying attention.
Right. Yeah.
But once I started reading this, it brought it back to my. I remember.
Sure.
Said, I remember seeing the skeleton because more than likely we were, kidding around and making jokes about it and just going. Right. Now, Ted is going to read an excerpt from his book, Proofs, the novel. Ted, can you tell us what chapter and what page you're going to be reading from?
Sure. I'm just going to start out. First, I want to read just a little bit out of the preface, and then I'm just going to start right at chapter 1, page 1. And but I wanted just a little bit of something to lead up to that.
Okay.
Seeing as how we've already talked about, we're familiar. We're obviously know that there's going to be giants involved. So this is just in the preface here. I'll read just a couple little quick paragraphs here first. Shortly after the turn of the 21st century, a friend and coworker pointed out a verse in the Bible to me that I've been fascinated about ever since. Genesis 6:4 briefly references an ancient civilization that is so amazing, but for some reason has been brushed aside and forgotten by mankind. I was so fascinated by this lone verse in the Bible that I spent several years later. I began to draw the long drawn-out process of researching everything I could find regarding that long-lost civilization that was glossed over in the Bible. I eventually wrote this novel, which is hinged around that one verse. Did giants really roam the planet Earth eons ago at the dawn of the human race? According to the Bible and many other ancient texts and legends, they did just that. I was and still am amazed at all the legends and folklore from around the world that seem to back up this fantastic story. The unexplainable megaliths scattered around the globe are a telltale sign as well. Over and over again, stories surface from the locals that live close to the ruins that do in fact support the connection. And then just another little snippet here, and right before I start, and this is kind of a disclaimer that because I want people to realize that I didn't make this stuff up.
Right.
The legends, folklore, non-character related individuals other than Zelma Schultz and books discussed in this novel are not the recreation of the author, but do or did exist, or if fabricated, were done by someone else in the distant past. The only things made up by the author are the characters and the things they do. You be the judge. Okay, here's chapter 1, page 1. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. This was probably the most famous opening sentence in any book ever written, Ty Larson thought. He read on. Most of the next few verses echoed familiarity from the first time he'd read the Bible back in high school. Then all of a sudden, there it was. A few short sentences in Genesis chapter 6 that were going to change his life forever. And it came to pass, when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men, and they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose. And the Lord said, My spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he also is flesh. Yet his days shall be 120 years. There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them, the same became mighty men which were of old, men of renown. Ty could hardly believe his eyes. Why had this not jumped out at him before? What did it mean? The sons of God and the daughters of men, and they bear children to them? This sounded like something straight out of Greek mythology. But Ty had been raised to believe that the Bible was fact, not myth. Ty reread the verses over and over again, his imagination running wild. Who were the sons of God? Or the giants in the earth? His thoughts kept slipping back to what little he knew about the characters in Greek mythology. Oh, and Poseidon were some of the gods. But what about the progeny of the gods and the humans, like Hercules and Achilles? Achilles was involved in the once considered mythical Trojan War with the city of Troy, the ruins of which had been discovered by Heinrich Schliemann in 1868. Could the rest of these stories possibly have any truth to them as well? And if they were true, what kind of world would this have been? It took several taps on Ty's shoulder by the librarian, reminding him that the library was closing for the night, to break his trance-like state had overcome him. He'd been in such deep thought that he'd totally lost track of time. Looking at his watch, Ty was surprised to see that it was nearly 11 p.m. He knew now where he needed to go next, but his visit to the church would have to wait until morning. So that's just the start of it. And of course, he makes a lot of discoveries after that. He stumbles on, he's encouraged to read the Book of Enoch, which leads him to one clue, into another clue, into another clue, and all these legends and folklore from around the world that seem to back up Genesis 6:4. He just keeps coming across. I mean, everywhere. There's talk of giants everywhere, as is the flood as well. There's several stories, at least 270, if not more. And all these flood stories are so similar too. I mean, and clear across the world when they're talking about after a family that's warned, and so they build a boat to try to save, and with the animals. I mean, they're so similar. That just keeps leading him on this quest. Circumstantial evidence here and there, but it keeps piling up, and then of course someone else, once he starts nosing too deep, then he gets someone else's attention that starts to follow him. But you don't know who that is, why they're doing it, and it takes him on a wild ride. But it was a lot of fun to write. Just all the stuff that I found out, and there was still more that I wanted to put in the book that I couldn't, for I'd still be writing it. There's just
exactly.
so much.
So
I mean, just the.
Go ahead, hon.
I say just the all the giants, the stories of the giants that they unearthed in the United States, in North America, once the people started settling here, and well, of course the Native Americans are already here, so it was already settled. But once the white man came over and started moving them out and expanding, they were building the roads and whatnot, and all the mounds, in like Ohio area and everything. They were finding all these huge skeletons. Exactly. And of course, the Smithsonian, they were a huge part of disappearing.
Absolutely. Ted, you're getting some wonderful reviews on Amazon with this book. So tell us how, when people, I don't know if you've had a chance to do any book signings, but what are people saying to you after they've read the book, those that know you personally?
Yeah, well, I get a lot of people that say that they were on Google the whole time, seeing if this stuff that I was writing about was actually true. So that's, and then, of course, I left the ending to where there could be a sequel. I mean, it could also leave it alone as it is, or there could be a sequel. A lot of people really want to know more, because I left a few unanswered questions. So, but yeah, yeah, my wife, when she was reading it, of course I was there, she kept saying, well, is this really true? Is this really true? It's like,
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, that's, and of course it's kind of perplexing. There's some people that read it in even 2 days, 1 day, when it took me like 4 years to put it all together. Of course, that's nice too, but the first few times it was kind of odd after it took me so long to put it together, and someone reads it that quick. It's like, holy cow.
Right. Yeah, that's when you know you have a great book. When you hear, I couldn't put it down. It was just so fascinating. And then to know that they're actually reading the book and going to Google to do the research, that is so fantastic. And I love what your banner says about your book. This is truly one of the greatest mysteries of all time.
I think it is.
And, absolutely. And we're down to about 5 minutes, so I just want to kind of throw this out here to you too. I think it was either Steve Quayle or L.A. Marzulli that also mention the fact, and this is a bit scary, that in Isaiah 13, and there's some translations of that. I can't remember exactly what verse it was in, but they talk about God actually unleashing the giants again to to attack mankind. Because, you know, there's a portion of mankind that's going to be destroyed as we're going through the tribulation. Did you get a chance? Have you seen that? Have you researched any of that information?
Well, I do know that that doesn't ring a bell right offhand, but I do know that one of the other books in the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Book of Jubilees, I believe it was. They, according to that, even though the flood came to wipe out everything, including the giants, what they were doing, according to the Book of Jubilees, 10% of them were allowed to survive.
Exactly.
So if they survived then,
Oh my goodness. Again, Ted, it's just so wonderful to speak to someone, you know, in my sphere, as opposed to a L.A. Marzulli or a Steve Quayle, because I'd love to have these guys come on the show and talk about their books. But, you know, they're kind of out there. I guess I could. I've never really sent forth an introduction or an invite to have them come on, but I think you nailed it. I think you really nailed it with your book. And again, the title of the book is Proof, the novel, Genesis 6:4. And as you guys can see that are watching the live interview, he's got a wonderful banner, and your cover is fantastic. Can you tell us who did your cover? That's great.
Yeah, you know, there was about 3 different people involved. I had a friend of mine originally did the artwork, and but the character that's coming out wasn't really what I was looking for, so I had to get someone else to do some Photoshop work to make that a little different. But I'm glad you like it, because some people are scared by it. Some people think it's trying to make the Bible gonna, you know, talk bad about the Bible, which it's not, you know. And then some people are scared because some people don't like biblical things because they think it's going to be preachy or something, and it's really not a I mean, it's based on Genesis 6:4, but it's not really a religious book per se. I mean, it's a, you know, it's a suspenseful thriller mystery, but
exactly. And I'm going to tell you something. One thing that you said really rings true with this would be a great movie, a wonderful movie. But just like those shadowy people that are following your main character there are certain, I'm so serious, there are certain, how do I want to say it without being preachy and scare people? There are certain sort of like the Men in Black they're not interested in this information getting out. And one of the things that you just mentioned when you read your, you know, after you read your book about the Indian burial mounds, and that's what I did based my book Blood Moon, The Return of the Giants. And it's sort of like a campy, you know, kind of scary book, but again, based on truth, because I'm here in the St. Louis area. And for those that are watching the show, and you might be familiar with the Cahokia Mounds, they're like 10 minutes from my house, you know.
Oh, really?
Exactly. And when you go there, I've actually been there, and you see these huge mounds. The first thing that you have, what the heck is in there, you know? And it's just amazing to me that a lot of people don't even pay any attention to what's right in front of them, Ted.
Oh yeah, and you know, Abe Lincoln himself, like the only honest politician that we have in our history books, he himself referenced those giants. I think he said, I think I had a quote here somewhere, what he said. Oh yeah, he was looking at Niagara Falls, and he says, "The eyes of these extinct species of giant whose bones fill the mounds of America have gazed on Niagara as ours do now." And that was in like 1848, I believe he said that. But you know, he was a believer too.
Absolutely. Wow. And I believe that there are certain people, such as ourselves, that will, you know, there's a reason why you know, this has intrigued us. And we've written books about it because there's only going to be a certain segment of the population that wants to know. You know, you have to, as it says in the word, you have to study yourself to be approved. I know I didn't.
Right.
Yeah, but you know, and it is, and I'm like you. My journey started in 1997, and it continues to this day. So
Yeah.
I thank you so much. Now, your book is available in, is it paperback? Do you also have it available in ebook?
Oh yeah, it's you can get it paperback, hardback, ebook. You can go through. It's, of course, it's at Amazon, it's at Barnes and Noble, and on all the ebook sites. But if you go to proofthenovel.com, my website, you can access all those sites from there. And also, if you want an autograph copy, you can go there and order an autograph copy. And if you just mention, you can send another email in the contact, mention Lynda Brown or your show, the Author Chat.
Okay.
Show to the end of the month, I'll knock $5 off of any autograph copies that people want to order if they mention your show. We'll have to give. It'll be like a $5 rebate. We'll have to pay the full price, then we'll send them a check for $5. But
awesome. We will definitely put that information on our Author Chat Facebook page and our blog. So thank you so much.
Oh, good, great,
for coming on the show.
Well, thank you, Lynda.
Absolutely. Very quickly, tell our listening audience, other than your website, how they can contact you. What's the best way? Are you on Twitter, Facebook?
Oh yeah, I'm all those: Twitter, Facebook, Google Plus. But yeah, again, if you go to proofthenovel.com, there's links to all those awesome. Places as well. Up at I think it's at the upper right corner of the page. There's links to all those social media sites.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Ted. We really enjoyed you coming on the show, telling us about yourself, and for sure sharing your book. And again, the title of the book is Proof the Novel, Genesis 6:4. And we wish you all the best. And anything that comes up that you want to share with our listening audience, just go right to our Author Chat Facebook page and just post it on there. It's available for authors to share their information once they've come on the show. Okay?
Great. Thank you a lot, Lynda. I really appreciate it.
Not a problem. Looking forward to having you come back with book 2 on that.
All right. Me too.
All right. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday, sweetie.
All right. You too.
Bye-bye.